Ah, you already
Stop.
have an action for that.
Yes, I do. Cancel. File rename. Browse. Okay, so it just, it just highlights the name because it's very uncommon that you actually want to change the file ending of an existing file. So it's just,
Hmm.
stop. File clone. Word hello. Stop. File clone hello.py. Stop. Browse.
Ah, so there's still a confirmation.
Yes, I always do confirmations when I have an open phrase on something, and that is because I don't really trust it to get all the words right, and it's easier to confirm it than to having to rename it afterwards half of the times. It's just
Yeah, totally.
yeah. So, but you can see here that if I do file sibling browse, so file sibling is like the new file, creating a new file. So if you see here, I didn't supply anything, didn't select anything. It just used the file ending of my current file. Stop.
Hmm.
Stop. File sibling hello. Browse. So here I supplied a phrase, but with or like a name with no file ending. Then it still uses the
Hmm.
file ending for my current file.
And then for the
Stop.
next demo, if you do supply an ending,
File sibling hello.py. Ah, you are
nice.
ahead, Phil. Cancel. Stop. File sibling. Stop. .py. Delhi. Take paint. File sibling. Stop.
Ah, okay, I get now
Undo.
what you were talking about. It defaults to the
Browse.
selection. Okay,
Yeah.
brilliant.
So yeah. File move. Down. Okay. Down. Okay. Pick two. Delhi. Pick two. Browse. And then if I press move file here, it actually moves the file. You see the path at the top.
Hmm. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay, so that's pretty
Stop.
accessible. When you said
Browse.
dialogue pops up, I was worried it wouldn't be, but it's the same
Yeah, for me,
typical
I'm going to use the
thing.
eye tracker. File
Hmm.
move.
Yeah.
Stop. Browse. I mean, that kind of thing. What else do we have? We have the generate range.
Oh yeah, I want to see that.
Post every line block. Generate range. Undo. Generate range from 5. Undo. Browse. I
Oh,
mean,
okay. So that has nothing to do with file commands. It's just another thing that you put into your extension. That makes a lot more sense.
yeah, I mean, you
I
see
thought
the
it was
headers here.
really,
You have file commands, edit commands,
yeah,
navigational commands.
yeah.
Navigational commands, open editor at index, that is, go to tab at index. It actually supports negative ones. Tab -2. Tab new. Tab new. Tab 2. Tab 2. Tab -2.
Yeah. No, I was just trying to figure out how the range stuff worked with file
Browse.
utils.
Oh, I
Makes
mean,
more sense now.
yeah. It's always easier with the demonstration. I have like,
Hmm.
this dumb one. Center. Center. Browse. It just goes to the center of the content of a line. I mean, I don't think I ever used that. That's probably one of the first things I added, like, when I started with Talon almost 2 years ago. It's just, yeah. I have a few Git
Was that
commands.
just the chess things, or did you have a use case in mind?
It was before I used Cursorless. So being able to go to the middle of a file, of a line was often, start. So I had like head, middle, and tail to just
Oh,
like,
okay.
be
This is
able to
just for your
navigate quickly on a line.
right. This is just for like your binary search use case. But
Yeah.
even then, that seems hard to chain because you'd have to be able to predict very well where that cursor would
Yeah, I
land,
mean,
right?
this was in the beginning when I didn't chain and I just had no
Got it.
cursorless and it was just all of that.
Yeah.
So it's
No,
yeah,
still,
I
still
don't use
interesting.
that anymore. I just still no need to remove it. I have a few Git commands here. Git open block. Oh, Undo. Git cancel. Git open block. Of course, you can't see my browser because I don't share that. Cancel. Browse. Basically just open GitHub with that pre-selected. So it's when you link to GitHub, you can link on a specific SHA, and you can actually link from like start and end lines. You can just have a specific piece of code highlighted. It just did that.
Nice. Assuming that the version, does it just use the default branch like main?
It uses the current commit. That's why I got an error message when I had a change, because it couldn't do that when I had uncommitted changes.
Okay, if you have uncommitted changes go ahead.
Yeah, so on that file, I can't have uncommitted changes on that file, because then there's no way for it to actually link to the correct code in the repository.
I mean, it could, but you'd have to look if the changes were around.
I mean, I'm not going to be that fancy, and I quite seldom have uncommitted changes. Doesn't really matter.
But I'm impressed that this looks at the current file. I thought you were saying it would bail if you had any uncommitted changes.
No, so this is what I'm using for, whenever people ask something on Slack or Discord, and how I can just send them this like link with that exact piece of code highlighted, because I would just find the code and just
so quickly, because it takes me a while, and you do it in like a second.
Git copy block, paste it, browse.
Oh, wait a minute. So you've hooked that up to a cursorless action?
Yes. Yeah, I use Cursorless to set the selection, and then so I do that kind of stuff where I use Cursorless to set selections, and then I run other code on that selection. I mean, Cursorless is,
and so the term for that is custom action?
We have custom actions in Cursorless. This is actually something I've done in Python. I call the Cursorless command to set the action and then do other stuff,
Oh, okay.
So it's not actually what we in Cursorless call a custom action. This is basically just wiring together Cursorless and non-Cursorless commands in the same action.
Got it. So you have a Talon action that runs the... Well, can you show us where that Talon action is?
I was going to say, can you show that? Yeah.
Scout file Cursorless. Tab next close. Undo. Pop sesh Andreas. Tab close. Drowse. Let's see. Here they are. So it was git copy drowse. So see here, it's just git copy cursorless target, and then I call cursorless command set selection on that target.
I see, and then user.git copy remote file.
Follow this.
Calling your
browse. Yeah. Yeah, and then I have some parameters here. For example, should it use the current selection or not, and should it use branch or should it use SHA?
Got it. Is that the reason you don't use a custom action? Is that you need to pass those parameters?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. When you have the cursorless custom actions, only takes a VSCode command. We don't have support for arguments in there.
Got it. And it would be kind of annoying to have to create like 4 different.
Yeah, and here, for example, I call like clip set text, and it's just.
You could do that in
I could do that in the extension if I wanted, but I mean, I have one thing. If you look on the one above, there I actually open the browser on the URL. On this one, I copy it, so the extension only returns the URL. The extension doesn't know how to open a browser. It's just. So that kind of interplay. So Talon asks Cursorless to set the selection. Cursorless does that. Then Talon asks my extension to return the URL, and then Talon either opens that URL or adds it to the clipboard. So it's kind of like back and forth multiple times, but it's so fast that you don't really notice that.
No, it was so fast that I assumed it was all.
The command server has a latency that is just amazing. Pokey did a really nice work there.
So this doesn't revert the selection afterwards, right?
No, I could definitely do that, but I mean, it's one of those things when you use Cursorless, I kind of set my selection somewhere, manipulate that code, and then either don't care about the selection or move it somewhere else. It's quite. I mean,
Yeah,
if I was typing in the middle of a sentence and then wanted to, for some reason, do a git copy, which of course I couldn't, because then I would have had unchanged changes or unsaved changes to my file. So it's good that, yeah, I could have, but I don't really think it's a problem.
And if you wanted to do that, how would you have done that?
I would probably have run cursor back command in VS Code. There's
Okay,
there's a cursor undo command in VS Code. Cursor undo. Cursor back. Cursor back. Browse. Yeah, so as long as you haven't actually made any changes to the file, I believe, or unsaved, I don't remember. There's something that breaks the cursorless cursor stack, or the VS Code cursor stack. But as long as you haven't done that, so if I just move my selection somewhere and copied that text, I could just have asked VS Code to reset the selection if I wanted.
Yeah, I like how simple this is.
Yeah, I mean, keep it simple, stupid. My programming teacher really banged that into my head. He used to write that on the whiteboard, like, the start of every lecture.
You get a lot of mileage basically by just like you say, oh, this is a cool integrated cursorless command that uses scopes, blah blah blah. But you're really just using cursorless as like a small engine to like just do the selection. And then you do whatever you want with that selection.
Yeah,
That
I
makes it
mean,
much easier to
why
make use
why
of
not? I mean, what
Yeah,
is like
really.
what is like, copy and paste at a specific target is more like you setting the selection, doing that, and I mean, it's just so yeah.
Could you go back to the Talon file?
Browse.
Yeah. So anyone can very easily just throw in like user.cursorless target and then set selection.
Yeah, and you can have set selection after and set selection before, like pre and post, if you want that.
To go before and after the target?
Yeah.
Nice.
If that is what you wanted, and I mean, it's just yeah, we can go back to extension. Pop sesh. Browse. What else? Oh, I have browse get selected text. That is just a way to get the selected text from VS Code without having to do like the clipboard dance in Knaus J. And you can see I return an array. So if I have multiple selections, I will actually get all of those back to Talon. I'm not sure what I'm actually using it for at the moment. I mean, it's just one of those things where if I want to do something funny with the text I have, I can do that.
Surprised this isn't a built-in action.
Browse. Yeah, definitely. I mean, they have no RPC, so there would no way to actually get that.
Oh yeah, there'd be no point. Right?
Yeah, get class name. I use that for constructors in Java. Tab new. Change language Java. Force Java. Class my class. Function constructor. Undo. Clear made. Pascal some other class name. Down. Undo. Delete. Pascal some other class name over. Down. I have no idea why it likes that Swedish letter, but of course, cancel. Undo. Over. Undo. Över. Undo. Browse. Yeah, it heard the word Swedish, so it went into Swedish dictation mode. Function constructor. Undo. Function constructor. Kind of useful. Cancel.
Okay, so that returns the class name for just wherever the cursor
is. Exactly. Undo.
I'm just curious,
Browse.
what does the implementation of that look like? Is it just wiring up some information that's already available?
Browse. So you can see here it's actually using tree sitter. So it's using the same tree sitter extension as we're using for Cursorless. So I'm basically just asking for the node at this current location, and the location is the current selection. And then I'm just walking up the tree, parent to parent to parent, looking for class declaration. And when I find that, I'm picking the name node. And if I don't find it, I return null.
Got it. And I'm guessing this doesn't hard code any languages, but this probably only works with some tree sitters.
I mean, it only works for languages that has a class declaration node, and the only language I've actually tested on yet is Java, because that is the only language I've used Cursorless for that has this constructor has class name syntax. I mean, C++ does as well, but I haven't actually used C++ with Cursorless yet, because, yeah.
Got it. You could use this in Python if you had Python classes.
Oh yeah, you could. I mean, I'm an outspoken Python hater, so except for Talon, which of course don't have constructors, I don't really use Python. But yeah, you could.
Right. And then in TypeScript, it just says constructors. You don't need this.
No, this is just for
yeah.
Java, of course, and I do a shit ton of Java at work, so that's why I have this.
Yeah. Okay, so this is cool. So basically, you've created an action to directly get something from tree sitter and just return it, so that then you can nicely wrap it inside of a Talon inserter.
I mean, if I
action.
wanted, I could just have like, return tree sitter hierarchy, and it would just give you like an array of all the nodes up the stack. If I mean, if the data is there, we can use the command server to just return it.
But then you'd be doing that filtering in Python.
Browse.
That would be ugly.
Exactly, when I can do it in lovely TypeScript.
Neat.
Highlight blue ox, browse. Get dictation context. That is like, the cursor dance in Knaus J, but I actually ask VS Code for the dictation context. I don't have to do that cursor dance.
Nice. Do you dictate in, this is for dictation mode inside of VS Code?
Yes, for the draft editor.
Cool. Yeah, I do something similar.
Highlight blue made, browse. This is just to execute multiple commands. So in VS Code, you can bind, like keyboard shortcuts and that kind of stuff. But a keyboard shortcut can only run a single command. But that command can take multiple arguments. So I just ran this command with other commands as arguments instead. Right now.
Use it for?
Yeah, I was just going to say, right now I don't know why I needed a keyboard binding, but I did it one time.
And this would only work for commands that themselves didn't need arguments.
Exactly. Oh no, I mean the arguments could be arbitrary. The arguments to this, right now it's just string, but it could have been an object, a list of objects that could, So I could have done it so I could have done post green gust, pipe word object round wrap past Sam, browse. I could have done that. So you could just give either a string or an object with strings and arguments, but I don't think I use this anymore. I mean, this extension, if you haven't noticed, is kind of like, a test bed for things. Git revert file. Highlight drum browse. And this just prints all available VS Code commands. And that includes those commands that are registered by extensions. It's just a way for me to not have to dive through horrible documentation. I could just print out all the commands, do a grep in that, and find whatever I want.
You can at least on VS Code find them in the command palette. It makes it easy to copy them, but this is better.
Yeah, or you have obnoxious developers who don't register them in the command palette.
Oh, that's right. There are commands that aren't in the palette.
Yeah, like my own.
I was just going to say that in JetBrains it's even more difficult to get the list of actions. So count your blessings.
Yeah, and then the last thing here is document formatter for Talon files and the definitions for Talon actions, list, and captures. Those two are lifesavers. Tab next close. Pop sesh. Slapper, word stuff, stack, word whatever, disk, browse. So you see here, whenever I save the file disk, it just auto-formatted everything into this column. So I have a column width, and everything is just aligned to these columns. I think this is so much easier to read. Just a personal preference, of course.
How do you do that?
My extension registers as a Talon script formatter, kind of like what Black does for Python.
Oh, cool. So I can do that then.
Scout format. Please format. I thought it was like a format width kind of thing. Cancel. Browse. Maybe that's actually TypeScript specific, where you can format with different. But yeah, so basically, if you install my extension, you get the Talon formatter included.
Yeah.
It is basically just doing very simple things like this column alignment. It will not actually care about white spaces inside parentheses and those kind of things. It basically just cares about the general layout of columns and lines. So, and the reason for that is because I'm basically just cutting, I'm just splitting the lines on the first colon and then doing a left pad, and that's it. So it's not like a full language parser that cares about arguments and function calls and the operands and stuff. It's just basically finding the colon, splitting on that.
Oh, this doesn't run Talon format?
No.
I'm surprised. Well, obviously this preceded it, but yeah, I'm curious if you tried switching it over, or if you're interested in that.
Talon format is implemented in Python, I believe.
You're a great nemesis. Yeah, but you could call it from a subprocess.
I could, but yeah. I would probably just use tree-sitter, because there is already a tree-sitter, as that Wen also wrote, of course, but there is a tree-sitter for Talon scripts. I would probably just use that and parse the file myself. It's a super simple format. But for now, I think it's good enough. And the last thing is go to definition. Undo. Disk. Follow drum. Bad example, that is in another extension. Cancel. Follow this. Browse. So you can see here, it found two implementation of change language. Edit.delete is a good example. Cancel. Follow this. Browse. So it's just like, a normal language definition, like language implemented go to definition, but I can actually jump from a Talon file to the Python action. And I can do that as well on captures and list. Cancel. Follow this. Browse. So it's just a way to navigate, between Talon files and Python files, and that's also included in the extension.
Yeah, I think there's very little reason for people not to install this extension, given that it doesn't really break anything or change any behavior.
No, there's only like two reasons. People who have like format on save might not like my column thing, and of course, pop sesh. Browse. I actually show you in the README here on line 79 how you would, for Talon file, just disable format on save so that you don't get my auto formatter every time you save a Talon file, if you don't want it. Because we had a person that hated that, so I had to add it. Yeah, it's, and also the second thing is that this is my personal testing platform. Line 7, in constant development, things will break. I will not break things on purpose, but if I think that something works better another way, I will just change it. I will not poll what the user base thinks.
Yeah, so it would break people who were depending on these commands, but because it's mostly adding new commands, it's very, very low risk compared to...
Yeah, and many of them are very simple. They are like single purpose things, but like the file utils that I just added a few days ago, I might change. I might want the entire path. File rename. Browse. Now it's just a file name. I might want, parent file / that kind of structures. You could actually move files while you're renaming them. Right now, I decided I don't want that because I think the risk of just spelling an existing file wrong and creating a new file, folder, is just too great. But I might just change that on a whim and then a week later change it back.
What would the grammar for that look like? It'd be like Yeah,
Head.
what would it be like?
Head. Word foo / word bar / word bass / drowse. I mean, it would just look like this, and then you would just like save it, you know.
Oh, so it would be a relative path from the root of the workspace.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
was
I mean,
thinking,
there is a risk that you're just like, you know, misremembering or mistyping something, and now you create another folder with a similar name. So
Yeah, I was thinking you were doing relative from the current path, so like ..
You could do that as well. If you just wanted to move it, you could just do .. I mean, it's just path.resolve. You just do like underscore under. I mean, in Node there is a constant call underscore dir name that is your current, you know, or like file name that is your current folder and file absolute paths, and then you can just join that together with like .. or whatever. So I mean, there's no problem at all for me to implement that. I just think that renaming should just focus on the name, and then we have a mover for moving.
Yeah,
Stop.
my favorite
File
feature
move.
that I would like eventually would be
Browse.
if we have a function that can
File
figure out the
keys.
formatting of a given string, like basically this current file name, this is camel or this is snake, then you could do a lot more fancy stuff without having to do formatters. Like you could just say, you know, rename copy, you know, like if you were in copy file name.ts, you could just do, you know, rename file copy file name to action or something.
Oh yeah.
Like
So you could just
camel
use the
before
same
camel action.
formatter as yeah. I mean, I could probably
This
implement that. I mean, it's just one of those. This is like that's what I'm saying. That I'm not trying to break things, but this is an iterative process. Things that I don't think
no,
that I think that don't work, I will just change. You know.
Actually, I feel like I think Pokey implemented something like that in Canouche for reformatting stuff. Like, no, that was camel or something. I should double check. But yeah, that's kind of a nice thing that people, because it's actually usually easier to figure out camel case or snake case than it seems.
I mean, you could definitely do that, most definitely. And also, one nice thing here is it actually respects git ignore. Split down. Comment. Disk. Stop. File
Oh, they
move.
don't show up in the UI. Nice.
Yeah. So now we have node modules here. Cancel.
So it makes your picking command
Comment.
shorter because it skips the folders.
Disk.
Yeah.
Stop. File move. Browse. Oh yeah, this just shows folders because you can't really move a file into a file, so there's no point of polluting the entire thing with files.
That as well, but I was wondering what the point of ignoring them was, and it's like, yeah, anything that makes that list shorter makes your life easier.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have said that this should, I mean, git ignore had already said that this should not be committed. How likely is it that you want to move a file into a directory that's not going to be committed? You know,
very unlikely.
Yeah.
I have a question. When you have these dialogues, they don't have numbers by them. If you have a large number of things, are you just really good at guessing which number? Like if you want 8 versus 9.
Oh,
Are you just good at
I
getting that
use the eye
information?
tracker. I mean, I will not use.
Oh,
yeah,
right, okay.
yeah. I mean, I could definitely add numbers to them if you want. I mean, that would be easy.
But you would have to add them in. How would you add them? You wouldn't be able to add them to like all picker dialogues, right? You'd have to do
No.
integration.
This one I made myself. I could add them to, but not to every picker dialogue. I mean, I'm a super heavy eye tracker user, so I kind of rely a lot of just clicking things.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I've noticed just
Stop.
in JetBrains, a lot of their pickers aren't numbered
Stop.
either, because of course, why would they?
Drag.
So I've just been wondering what to do about that. Yeah, if you can click with the mouse, then there's obviously no point. Well, I guess your flow is click with the mouse, or if it's like the first or second or third one, that's so fast that you probably just use pick
Browse.
for that.
Yeah.
How do you select when you're using eye tracker?
I just use the drag command here.
Okay.
But then I use
You're using a noise?
I'm using a repeater noise. So
Yeah, I think that's getting cut out by Discord.
1 sec, I can fix that. Cancel.
Because you were doing it earlier, and I'm like, how are you doing that without? Because I know you don't use a keyboard, and I realized, oh, it's not speech. So,
So can you hear this now? Cancel. Left.
Yeah.
Yes, I just turned
It's
off.
really loud.
I turned off crisp in Discord.
It's amazing,
Undo.
actually, to me that the difference is that stark.
Oh, I was going to ask you, what noises have you got? You got that the clicking sound and sh and s. That's 3. Oh, that one as well. Okay. So a pop, a click, and a sh and a s. Okay. 4.
Yeah. So the popping sound is for. Okay, we can take them all. Cancel. Drowse. So when in sleep mode, I only have a single noise. That is the clucking sound, like the palatal click. Once I am actually in command mode, I have 4 noises. Cancel. I have the pop sound. Cancel. And that is, of course, just to select things. Cancel. Left. Now that clucking sound becomes a repeater. Cancel. And then I have a shush and a hish sound to scroll up and down. Cancel. Tss, sh, tss, tss, sh. Drowse. But the repeater noise I use a lot combined with the eye tracker, because you can say a command, then you can move your selection using the eye tracker and the pop sound, and then use the repeater noise to just repeat that command. Camel format line. Camel format line. Undo. Drowse. So that repeater for me is a lifesaver. I mean, you can see how easy I could just like undo the number of things I wanted, and I didn't have to count, because it could be hard sometimes to remember. I wonder if this was counted as 3 or 4 insertions. So if you say undo 4 times, it might undo too much. And I mean, a repeater for undo is great.
Which way around was it? It was the clucking sound for repeat, and it was popping sound for undo.
No, the popping sound is just left click.
Okay.
Undo. Drowse. So I said undo a single time and then just use the repeater. So I programmed the repeater and then I could just do a repeater sound.
Sorry, there were two sort of popish sounds. One was a cluck, one was a
undo.
pop.
Drowse.
It was the
the clucking sound, the loud one. That is the repeater. Yeah.
And the popping sound you were using for what? Sorry.
Left click.
Left click. Okay, fine. Yeah, because the clucking sound is much easier, and so you'll do it using that one a
Left.
lot more. Yeah, that is an easy sound to make.
Drowse. Yeah, but it's also a bit more tiring than the popping sound. That's what I'm using, and also you can't do it as fast. I mean, the popping sound I can triple click.
Was that a triple click? Oh yeah.
Drowse. It would be hard to do that clucking sound 3 times that fast. So the popping sound is least physical effort and the fastest noise. That's why I'm using that for left click. The clucking sound is probably the most reliable sound, because the popping sometimes happen when I just like smack my lips or something. The clucking sound is very reliable. So that's why I'm using that for repeater and for wake up. You don't really want Talon to wake up. You don't want Talon to like repeat, like removing things or, So, for me, those 2 sounds are perfect for what I'm using them for.
And they're using the sh and the that is
shh.
Is that sort of a common thing?
Rouse.
Is there a reason? It's because they're less sort of punk.
No, they are continuous. So I can hold that for 10 seconds if I want, and just continue scrolling. If you have what do you call it, like a transient sound, then you make that once, and okay, how far is that going to scroll? But continuous noise, you can just shh, drowse. I even experimented with correlating the amplitude, as how loud I made the noise with the scrolling speed. So if I made it louder, it scrolled faster. Worked really well, but that of course made it so I would just really strain myself doing the noises super loud when I was like impatient.
Also builds bad habits of like shushing people.
Yeah, to be honest, I use the foot switch most of the times. So this is just the foot switch doing the same thing. The noises is something that I use maybe if I'm just standing up and I'm just a bit far from my desk, or if I'm like, for some reason just don't want to use the foot switch. So those noises are more of a backup. The foot switch is my primary scrolling.
Yeah, I use pop to click all the time, personally, and you don't need parrot for that. You can just do that in Talon.
Yeah. I think the nice thing about Parrot is that you can add extra things so for me, a clicking sound and a repeating sound, those two gets you so far. So if Talon would just have add an additional sound, I think that would have helped a lot, because I think that I'm basically only using two sounds, but I could not live without those two sounds. So it's kind of, it's a weird mix where you need so little, but they do so much. It's So for example, if you are in a browser and you want to open like multiple links, I can say con, which is my control click. Control click opens a tab, a link in a new tab. Con, and then just go browse and just open like 10-15 links in a new tab like that. I think that is so the ability for the eye tracker to move the cursor and move the selection without disturbing the repeater command, combined with the repeater noise, is just so powerful. I didn't realize that before I started using it, but the synergy with an eye tracker and a repeater noise is just amazing.
So Phil, you're using the clucking sound for your main.
No, I've been meaning to use parrot, but I just use pop.
Pop. She's kind of with the lips. I can't. Yeah.
It takes a little bit of practice. The nice thing about it is that there are almost no false positives. There can be false positives with speech with B108, so that's why I don't use B108. I use C403, but it's not as good in other ways. But like I use the pop, I just have that hooked up all the time. So even when I have Talon asleep because I'm in a meeting or I'm listening to music or something, I can use pop because there are nobody pops. Like there are so many cases where there's speech and it's a false positive and it screws things up. Nobody pops. There are no false positives like in the world of pops to screw that up.
That's why I think it's a great to use noises for like waking Talon, because no one is accidentally going to make that noise.
Like noises and keyboard shortcuts are like the anti-speech. Like they complement each other so well, because keyboard shortcuts and popping, they're extremely reliable and they're very, very fast. So that balances nicely with speech, which can be very, very powerful, but sometimes inaccurate and high latency.
Yeah. I just think
Talon is all about combining different input methods. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. The more input methods, the better. I mean, you don't want to really wear out, your foot or your voice, or, just combining multiple input methods is great. But I really think that the repeater is such a natural thing to do. I mean, how often don't you hit the same key on the keyboard multiple times? It's just like, okay. Delete.
Mm-hmm. Do you have and so the repeater just repeats the single last
command? Yeah.
All of the actions that were run in that command?
Yeah.
Do you ever do anything, like I know there's a macro system in Canalschip, but I've never used it. Do you ever do any repeating of anything more than a single command?
I have a spoken repeat phrase command, but oh no, sorry, my noise actually repeats the entire phrase.
So if you chain, then it will repeat everything in the chain. Yeah.
That's quite elegant.
Bring vest, air, bat, cap, bang. Undo.
Okay, so in that case, you don't really have to do something different as far as your repeater noise goes. You just get what you want to repeat into the phrase, and then you repeat that.
Yes, and the reason for that is that you can't chain or interleave noises with speech, so Talon doesn't evaluate my speech until there has been silence for like 400 milliseconds. That means I can't say like hello, hello, pop, 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 hello, hello, because the popping sound will be immediately triggered, so you can't really interleave voice with the noises. That means I really have to have waited for the command to execute before I repeat it. And if I still have to wait, then I could just like repeat the entire phrase. The reason for this twice or second only does the last thing is that you can actually use that in chaining.
Yeah, you can use that
Airbat
inside
twice
the phrase.
cap, drowse, that kind of stuff. If that would have repeated both A and B, that would be annoying. So my spoken repeater commands repeat the last command, while the noise repeats the entire phrase. That is, both me and Pokey uses that setup. It's way more powerful, actually.
And you could have a command that would repeat the last phrase as well, but
I do have slap, airbat cap, twice, slap, airbat cap, phrase twice, drowse. So I just add the prefix phrase and then it's phrase level.
I see.
Phrase 4 times. Cancel. Phrase 4 times. Airbat cap. Phrase 4 times. Yeah. Chuck line. Drop line. Undo. Drowse.
So with that distinction of the phrase repeater versus the
command repeater, yeah.
It saves you from having to like have a separate command to like load up the phrase as the thing to be repeated, which I was envisioning. But
and I have actually done things where, let's see if I can have a good example.
Are you recording this, by the way?
Yeah.
Good.
I'm wondering if I'm trying to figure out, think of a good example, but where I want an entire phrase. Quadrap line tail drip. Quadrap line this tail drip. Drowse. I have no idea why my quadrap line failed. Undo. 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 Quadrap line this. Undo. Drowse. I can't remember right now. I did something a while ago where... Oh, I guess you can use relatives in Cursorless. Post second token, bang. Post second token, then bang. Undo. Drowse. Yeah, so you could just use it for like, oh, I want to go after the second item or the second token in this list and do something there. And if you chain that, then you could just like, repeat that in multiple places.
And this reminds me of something that you said in a previous Meetup. Because you use an eye tracker, a lot of the things that you use the eye tracker for would otherwise be commands which would pollute your phrase history and prevent you from doing this. But because you can just move the mouse and then use pop to click, that means
exactly.
The last phrase is
If you remove a line and then you have to, like if you do something with the line and then you have to use a navigation command to go to the next line, now your last command has updated. So I think that is why the macros in Knaus.j is useful, because you can basically say like, this command I want to store for later.
Yeah.
But since I can use the eye tracker to move around, I mean, I even do that sometimes in like, dictation mode. Tab new, dictate. This is some stuff and I have no idea what I'm going to say. I hated that word. And I have whisper on, I guess. Yes, I do. Some other text. And some suffix. Over. Drowse. So I mean that kind of flow where I would just dictate things, and if I got something wrong, yeah, we just double click on it while in dictation mode, and you just dictate over it, you know.
Yeah, so if somebody didn't have an eye tracker and they were using a lot of navigation commands, and they might want to have like a macro store flow, but it could still just use the phrase. So I was thinking
Yeah.
of some complicated thing where you'd be like gluing different command history things
Slapper.
together to make your macro.
Drowse.
But really, you just need like a store, the last one. That's the one I'm going to repeat. And you don't have to do that at all because you use the eye tracker.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you could do something like this: bullet word task stacker slap. Drowse. I mean, it's just, yeah, if you want to do the same thing multiple times, you can just repeat that phrase. So there you had 4 different commands in the single phrase, and I just repeated those. Yeah.
But for the demo earlier where you're repeating something, but you're
Yeah.
also navigating to different parts of the code and then doing the repeater, there you'd have to have some distinction.
Yeah. I mean, it's just another tool in your toolbox. It's just, I mean, you can repeat phrases and you can repeat commands and you can move around. And you saw here, I even used eye tracker to change the voice engine while in dictation mode. There's no reason for me to leave dictation mode to do that. If I would have used a voice command, I would have to leave dictation mode because I wouldn't have like change voice engine command in dictation mode. That would have been weird. So it's just, yeah, I must say I'm super happy with eye tracker. It took a long time to learn. It's kind of like similar to Cursorless. In the beginning, it's very cumbersome, but I mean now I use it to play games and all that kind of stuff. It's really helpful. Yup.
Awesome. Thanks for the demos.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm just gonna stop here and then I guess just upload this to YouTube. My approach is it's either totally uncut or I don't really have the time.
I think we avoided anything that would have to be cut. So, success.
Yeah. Yeah.
No private, like,
that's great.
personal
Thank
address
you.
or something was revealed. And things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Okay. Take care, everybody. See you next session.
Here's Andreas. Thanks.
Stop recording.
Bye.